If I can have your attention here in the Media Center, we'll continue on with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availabilities. We are joined by Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford for Team Penske. Joey, this has been a good track for you and a good season to start off. How much momentum do you feel like you have coming into this race weekend?
Yeah, it's been a nice start, especially kind of how last season went. It feels nice to see the front again and be able to lead some laps and have the chances to win. That's a nice feeling, and to be able to unload today and have some good speed in our race car, I think we have something good to qualify with. So, yeah, feeling good about it. Confidence levels growing throughout the whole race team again. I think that's a good thing, and we keep this consistency up. That's something that's nice right now. We've been very consistent this year, and hopefully we just keep that rolling and get a win this weekend.
Outstanding. We'll open the floor up for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless microphone to you. We'll start here with Lee, and then we'll go to Wolfgang.
And the points leader. That was a nice consolation prize, wasn't it?
That felt nice. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's only 3 races in, but it feels nice, yes.
Your teammate was lobbying about the Fords not being able to keep up with the Toyotas and the Chevys before the season started. It's clear you guys look pretty stout. Are you happy with the progress that Ford made in the offseason?
Yeah, I am. The progress has been in the right direction. I think there's a few reasons on why that is. I think the Hawkeye system and all that has really kind of changed the game a lot for a lot of race teams, and I think it kind of brought us a little bit more into the playing field, which is great for us. And I think we made some good improvements over the offseason. I think we've been able to make our cars a little bit better. So I think there's a few things that kind of helped us get that way. I think you still see the other manufacturers are going to be good. And I'm sure Chevy's going to figure this thing out pretty quick as well. With the new body, we kind of seen Toyota do the same thing last year, is have a slow start. And by the end, they were really, really fast. So we're hoping that doesn't happen, but so far it's been a great start for Team Penske and for all the Fords. Really have shown some good speed.
We'll go to Wolfgang, to Bob, and then to Mike, and then to Reed.
Yeah, Joey, Team Penske started from last year 2-car, now to 3-car team. Do you think, or you feel, as maybe the more correct word, do you feel it's already a different way of operation, logistics? Or is it the same like the years before?
No, it's a big step, to add another race team. It's not easy, believe me. For me, my job doesn't change a whole bunch, but for the management of our race team, hiring the right people, figuring out how to get them all to the racetrack, all that stuff's just more, right? The way we set up the way we share our data. Between the teams, you got to add more to that, and our team meetings, right? There's more people in them. How do we go through that stuff? There's a bunch of little things that you don't really think about until you get to the racetrack and realize, oh man, we got to do this now, or we got to do this now. And it's just the timing changes for things, and you just got to get used to it. It's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying any of this is bad. It's just a challenge, and it's a good challenge for our race team, I think. So we've shown it's made us, I feel like, stronger already, and I think as we keep plowing forward with it, I think we'll be able to use it to our advantage even more.
Okay, we'll go to Bob, then to Mike, then to Reed, then to Greg.
Bob Pockers, ESPN. In light of Harvick's situation, there's been some discussion on the role of social media and kind of officiating the sport or contributing to officiating the sport. Is there any concern on your end that that NASCAR can see what's on social media and have it potentially influence any decisions?
I mean, I don't think it really influences a decision. It probably makes things a little bit more vocal. As you guys know how social media is, I don't have to explain to you guys what it's about. Little things get blown into something really big, no matter what we're talking about. I'm not just talking about race cars. I'm talking about everything in life. But, I think it obviously stood out, right, on there. And then a lot of things were talked about afterwards. And it's no different than the 24 last year in Chicago, right? Something that was pointed out a lot. And then everyone keeps looking at their pictures or their Twitter accounts or whatever it is and sees it. It's not something that us as a race team, we're going to see it either way. It doesn't change us, and I wouldn't assume that NASCAR makes calls off of social media, and I wouldn't think that's the case. I would think NASCAR is bigger than that, and I think it just makes the story bigger when you see it all over social media. It's not like a secret penalty or something that's underneath the car and we're all trying to figure out what's that really do, and you can't really see it and you don't know what it does. And when it's on the outside of a car, it's pretty blatantly obvious that something's different, right? You can see something's different. And I think that's where the common fan that watches NASCAR racing and you don't understand the crazy things that the engineers understand underneath the car, it just makes it more obvious for everyone to see.
Going to Mike, Reed, Greg, then Chris.
Mike Embry, USA Today. Does the fact that the 4-car has led so many laps the past couple of weeks, looking at that from the Penske viewpoint, does that make you react, great, we know that's possible, or does it frustrate you that hadn't been one of you guys doing it?
Yep. You see, yeah, both for sure. It's if it wasn't for the 4-car the last couple of weeks, we'd say, man, we're the best car. I'd say we're a 2nd to 5th place car lately, and the 4-car has just been the best car. He's been the fastest the last couple of weeks, and like I said, we're 3 races in. In Atlanta, we kind of chalked it up to Kevin being probably the best driver at Atlanta, and we thought, it's Atlanta. He's typically faster. I get it. Vegas is one of those things that we all thought, wow, maybe it wasn't just Atlanta. And I think Phoenix has always been a good track for him as well. So it'll be it takes a few weeks to kind of realize where exactly you stand. I think we're in good shape so far. But yes, I do think that he's a solid step in front of everybody right now. Yeah, I think that team is.
Reed Spencer, NASCAR Wire Service. When you guys come back here in the fall, the track's going to be flipped. The restart zone's going to be in turn 2, and the finish line in the dog leg. Have you thought about how that's going to change things here?
I've thought about it some, but some of it you don't really know until you get there. And honestly, I'm focused on this weekend and what I have to do for restarts with the start-finish line where it's at. But it will change everything drastically. Just think about, where the start-finish line is supposed to be located, and thinking about when you get past that start-finish line and it opens up. That's going to be pretty awesome. It's going to be crazy. It's going to open up more than any track we go to right now. So, there'll be plenty of lanes to pick from. And it's all going to funnel down some into turn 3 and funnel down even more off of turn 4, and then funnel one more time into turn 1. So everyone's going to have to keep trying to find these holes to get back into, but there's so much opportunity when you cross that start-finish line for pulling out. So I think there'll be some crazy moves there. There might be drivers that are a little too aggressive that may make the move too soon, which may cause a penalty. There may be drivers that are a little too aggressive into turn 3 and may slide up the racetrack, and that'll definitely change up the way that 3 and 4 works, because it's such a long sweeping corner that you can have one guy slide up, and the crossover move is pretty apparent there that you can do a lot there with it. So I'm excited about it. I think it's a great change this track's making. Obviously with the we'll all get kind of suckered into the, how the garage is going to be better and the grandstand's going to be better and all. And I agree, that's going to be great, and I'm glad they're doing that. But I think for the racing, I think that's another step that's probably hidden in this whole thing.
Greg?
Can you talk to me about your strategy now? Greg Moore, Arizona Republic. Good to meet you.
Hey.
Can you talk to me about your strategy in that turn now, the way it is? When do you dip? When do you not?
In 3 and 4? Yeah, or the 1 and 2? I'm confused on what's 1 and 2 right now. That'll be 3 and 4. The dog leg thing. What's that? Is that turn 5? What do we call that one? What's that supposed to be? I'm still confused on how there's 4 turns around a racetrack. I see 2. I see 3 here. Why is there only 3 at Pocono? Shouldn't there be 6? I don't know. These are the things that go through my mind that I can't figure out. Maybe you guys can help me. Anyways, the dog leg thing, or turn 5 or 3, whatever you want to call it. I think it's something that's right now is played a lot, right, on restarts, and you can go 3-4 wide, and there's plenty of room for it, and I think that's cool. And the fact that it's so abrupt when you go down there, there's no smooth transition, and our cars are on the ground, right? So you don't just the car doesn't absorb it with suspension. You hit the racetrack. It's an impact when you go down there, which isn't really doing any favors to your car. But there's times that you got to do that to make the room that you need to make a big move and to make a pass or something like that. So it's something that's played a lot during the race. I think it's a cool thing, a unique piece about Phoenix here. So I think that's great.
You think you'll do it more or less going forward?
I think the restarts will make it happen more, but it happens quite a bit now.
Sure.
I mean, every restart, there's somebody that goes way, way down there, and it goes out of. It's funny as I was watching the race. Some drivers go like out of camera view, and it's like, where'd he go? And they come back up. It's pretty cool.
Wrap up here with Chris.
Chris Knight, catchfence.com. Just wondering how you were adjusting to fatherhood now that you're on the road every week.
Yeah, that's definitely different. It's hard. I feel bad for my wife Brittany because I leave her on the weekends right now because these West Coast races are just too far to bring them in. She's on her own, toughing it out. I try to tell her that I'm not sleeping so well here, and it's really hard. But she's doing great. She's a champ, I'll tell you that much. And I try to help as much as I can when I can when I'm at home. But I always feel bad when I leave. But it's been the biggest transition is just kind of figuring out your time and how to prioritize your life, because that's probably one of the biggest differences, right? Is how can you spend as much time, especially right now, this West Coast swing. You guys know how it is. You're never home, and you want to spend as much time when you're at home, but you still got to work when you're at home. So it's just hard to try to figure out the time and when you can do certain things without cutting anything out. And so I think just trying to figure out my life from that standpoint away from the racetrack has been probably the biggest adjustment for me personally. But it's been the coolest adjustment of my life, I can tell you that much. It's so much fun to just see him and look at him and things he changes every day. And it's been entertaining, to say the least. He's starting to smile. Yeah, he's starting to smile a little bit and giggle a little bit, which is pretty cool. He never sits still, which I know where that came from. That's for sure. He never sits still, so I get in trouble for that because that's apparently my fault. So when he doesn't sit still and cries all day.
Well, we'll let you move on and continue your motion back to the garage. And thanks for taking the time to join us today.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
If I can have your attention here in the media center, we will continue on with today's media availability with Ryan Newman, driver of the number 31 Grainger Chevrolet for Richard Childress Racing. Ryan, highlight here last year, you coming back into victory lane and breaking a long drought for Richard Childress Racing. How significant was that moment to you in your racing career, and how do you feel coming back here to Phoenix?
Well, it was huge in several levels, as you said. To break the winless streak was super important for myself, but I think even longer for RCR. So that was special to get Luke his first Cup win, my engineers their first Cup win together as a team was special. And the way we did it, we kind of outsmarted them, so to speak, and took track position and held them off on a 2-lap shootout. So in addition to that, we had a good car here in the fall race last year. Had some less than average pit stops that kind of held us back, but in the end still had a good car that was capable of winning there as well. So really look forward to being able to come back this year, and don't expect to win, but feel like we have a good car.
Okay, we'll open the floor up for questions. If you have a question for Ryan, please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless microphone to you. We'll start here with Wolfgang and work our way around.
But I have two.
You have two. Hold up both hands.
Ryan, you have a new car now, the new Camaro. How different is it from the car compared to last year? Different driving behavior? You have to relearn some things. And question number 2 was Austin's win in Daytona. Personally, did you also have some benefit on the technical side? Did you share technical information?
So on the car side, I really can't give you a complete, honest answer because so many things changed when we went to the Camaro versus the SS. So, for instance, the splitter shape changed. Just a few of the small things, even like the way the body scans are done, and the lack of the LIS and the new Hawkeye system. There's no apples to apples unless you took 2 cars, which would have been a waste of time for us, to a track and try to figure out the differences in a setup between an SS and a Camaro would have been the only way to do it. So I think that all the work that went into the Camaro ZL1 was huge from from an ownership standpoint of the car owners working together, which is not always common, as well as what the Chevrolet people did to listen and create the car and the balance that has been fairly good for us out of the box. We obviously had a good Daytona with Austin winning, and to segue into your answer there, yeah, from an alliance standpoint, teammate standpoint, it's great to have that success. But this is a selfish sport, right? You want it to be your own. You want it to be your own victory, and sharing is not exactly a common word amongst the garage. So, or at least meaningly. So we feel like as a group, the transition that we had in the off season, going from 3 teams to 2 teams, and being able to start the season off with having let a few people go, but then winning a race and pumping up the people that were there, and letting them feel that true first race of the season, biggest race of the year, Daytona 500 victory was really special.
We'll go next to Greg.
Ryan, Greg Moore, Arizona Republic. Good to meet you.
You too.
Can you talk to me about your strategy on turn 2 this race versus going forward?
This race as in Phoenix, or just this race?
This track, right? Because they're going to move the start-finish line.
Oh, the walls is going to be the same, so they're going to keep us contained inside the same swimming pool. So, the track layout, I guess you could say, changing, and the start-finish line moving is really only going to affect us, I think, for the most part. The way we approach a qualifying lap, getting a good run off of whatever you call this now, because you're making the dog leg the start-finish line, which is, I guess, still going to be a dog leg, but the way you the way you accelerate through what is now 1 and 2 will be 3 and 4, and getting a good run at that, and in addition to a restart zone, which is going to be, from what I see, having cars going around a corner in a restart zone, which is we only do really at road course races. So there's a few things that are going to make it different and unique, but in the end, as a driver, if I don't get the green flag here and get it over there, I'm going to remember that the checkered flag's over there. So it'll be all right.
Additional questions for Ryan? Let's go to Lee.
I was wondering about the pictures that show up. There's a lot of spy photography that goes on in the garage to keep other people straight. How much specifically can you glean from a photograph? I mean, you have an engineering background, and a lot of guys can just walk by a car and see little things that kind of tip them off. But, most of us, our eyes aren't that keen. So what can you glean from a good photograph?
You mean like reading somebody else's answers on a test? You saying I'm the only one here that did that? Yeah. So I mean, that's happened for years and years, and I would say it probably happened with photography a little bit, but with technology the way it is and the ability to zoom in and scan in and do different things, and create our own pictures, pay somebody to take pictures. Why wouldn't you? It's one of the ways that as a team or an organization or a manufacturer we can try to create an advantage. So it is. It's been out there for a while, and it's going to be out there for a while more, because there's really no way to. It's like freedom of speech, just freedom to take a picture, right? There's no place in the garage that says no pictures allowed. So, I mean, there's a balance, I think, of guys that have respect for that position, and there's a few out there, obviously, always that don't care. They just want their money. So,
any additional questions?
It's not exactly spy. It's just freedom, right?
Cloak and dagger.
I mean, realistically, right? It's not like we're going on somebody else's property and taking a picture of their, cars in their garage. We're literally.
The garage polices itself, and this is just another tool.
And it always has been.
Sam Brennan, ASU, Blaze Radio. You said earlier you don't expect to win. I'm going to sound like your mom here, but you won last time. Why don't you think you can do it again?
I didn't say I didn't think I could. You're putting words in my mouth now.
Well, no,
I said I expect to. I don't expect to.
Yeah, okay. You don't.
Doesn't mean I don't have the capability or the potential to.
Okay, so why do you
just say
not
just
expect
because just if I'm a thoroughbred horse and I won the Kentucky Derby doesn't mean I go out and win the next race, right?
Yeah.
So I don't expect
what's
to
your
win.
reservation if you expect?
My reservation? I don't have one.
Okay.
I'm just saying I don't expect to. there's a line between cockiness and confidence.
Okay.
And you expect me to be cocky. That I expect.
Now I'm confused.
We'll
The
review the
pink
tape.
shirt had to be already figured. You know, never mind.
We'll go over here to Greg again.
Is your background in engineering or law?
If it was law, I wouldn't answer that.
Additional questions for Ryan? Ryan, thanks for taking the time to join
Thank
us.
you,
Good
guys.
luck this weekend.
We're joined here by the driver of the number 18 Skittles Sweet Heat Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing, Kyle Busch. Kyle, it looks like you have something here for us today.
Well, this is just a replica of what we got on the track with us here this weekend and what we ran once last year with our Sweet Heat Skittles Camry. It's obviously a pretty neat little gizmo. The Skittles guys always do a great job of kind of coming up with something new, something funky. So this is their rendition, their take on what we got going on this year, and got some Sweet Heat packs of Skittles right going on in here. So if anybody wants some, be sure to come on, swing by. We're going to keep this thing around this weekend and be handing out some Skittles Sweet Heat.
All right.
Don't mind if I do.
We'll open it up for questions now.
All right, not everybody at once.
Bob.
Bob Pockers, ESPN. There's been some talk this week on the role of social media and NASCAR officiating. Do you have any concern that NASCAR, what they see on social media could impact what they're looking for in the tech center?
Absolutely. I think what they see in social media also goes based off of driver penalties and other things as well, too.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, or it doesn't matter?
I think there's too many voices. I think them at the powers that be that are way higher than me need to figure out how to shut that off and not pay attention to it sometimes and do what they think is best for the sport, as what we've done for 60 years. But it seems as though the last 10 especially has been more so in listening to those that are watching it, and those that are watching it have way too many varying opinions. You're not going to please them all, and it doesn't seem as though that we're setting ourselves up for the best going forward by listening to too many of them.
Reed.
Reed Spencer, NASCAR Wire Service. When you guys come back here in the fall for the elimination race, track's going to be flipped. Restart zone in turn 2, start-finish line in the middle of the dog leg there. What do you think the most pronounced effect that's going to have on the racing?
I think the restart zone for sure is going to be interesting, going to be different. I think that as far as the track being flipped, I don't think once you're running it's going to make much difference. But I think obviously with the restart and everything, there's more room, I feel like, when you get off into turn 3 right now. If it was turn 1 for restarts, but it feels like you kind of try to figure out how to get single filed by the time you get to turn 3, which is 1 right now. So it'll have some changing effects on kind of what's going to happen with restarts and such, and with the restart zone moving. If you're further back in the pack and trying to get a good restart or whatever, you're still going to be bending a corner almost, So I don't think it'll be that much different, but it's definitely going to be somewhat different.
Do you think you will see cars across start-finish panning out like the Pokemon?
Well, you can't pass till the start-finish line, right? So you only have a certain amount of space before you get down into turn 1. I'm sure you'll see some desperation moves and some bad decisions be made and some carnage ensue, but hopefully none of it's with us.
More questions? Jeff Gluck.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. I saw you took Brexton out in the dunes. What does Brexton think of going that fast?
He likes it. So far so good. He's always kind of liked speed. His Lightning McQueen cars that he has are a little souped up, so they're not standard speed at all. He gets to go a little faster than his friends, so that's always pretty fun to watch and to see. But we were doing it this weekend. Last year he went out with me a little bit. We didn't go too far. We didn't go too hard because obviously being that small, they're not fully developed yet. So you try to keep it light on the G loads and banging his neck around and stuff like that. So this time around we went for a longer dune ride, but still tried to keep it to his pace, I guess you'd say. And there were times that he picked up his hands and he was like driving, like air driving, like the steering wheel. Like we were going up the dunes and he was turning, and we were going down and he was turning, and some other stuff. And then he fell asleep for a little while duning. So I mean, he's obviously pretty chill and gotten the hang of it pretty quick.
Greg.
Hey, Greg Moore, Arizona Republic. Good to meet you. Can you describe to me the strategy in the dog leg right now?
I mean, right now with the dog leg, when you take a restart right here, you have a corner to kind of get up to speed and get your thoughts and your things kind of going for when you get to the dog leg. But then once you get down around to the back straightaway, everybody tends to fan out. It gets pretty wide over there, and guys get pretty aggressive on how much they want to cut it. With the no ride height rule in the Cup cars, we obviously slam the racetrack pretty hard, and side skirts bend, and things kind of happen a lot during the race. And you got to be conscious of that and kind of pick and choose when you want to use the dog leg and how hard you want to be aggressive on using the dog leg and beating up your race car. So all that goes into your mind as you're racing around through there. But if it comes down to the end and a late restart, a 3 to go, a green white checkered, or whatever, then you got to utilize as much of a shorter distance as you can in order to try to make up spots. Mm-hmm.
Any more? All right. Thank you, Kyle.
You got it.
We're joined here by the driver of the number 18 Skittles Sweet Heat Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing, Kyle Busch. Kyle, it looks like you have something here for us today.
Well, this is just a replica of what we got on the track with us here this weekend and what we ran once last year with our Sweet Heat Skittles Camry. It's obviously a pretty neat little gizmo. The Skittles guys always do a great job of kind of coming up with something new, something funky. So this is their rendition, their take on what we got going on this year, and got some Sweet Heat packs of Skittles right going on in here. So if anybody wants some, be sure to come on, swing by. We're going to keep this thing around this weekend and be handing out some Skittles Sweet Heat.
All right.
Don't mind if I do.
We'll open it up for questions now.
All right, not everybody at once.
Bob.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. There's been some talk this week on the role of social media and NASCAR officiating. Do you have any concern that NASCAR, what they see on social media could impact what they're looking for in the tech center?
Absolutely. I think what they see in social media also goes based off of driver penalties and other things as well, too.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, or it doesn't matter?
I think there's too many voices. I think them at the powers that be that are way higher than me need to figure out how to shut that off and not pay attention to it sometimes and do what they think is best for the sport, as what we've done for 60 years. But it seems as though the last 10 especially has been more so in listening to those that are watching it, and those that are watching it have way too many varying opinions. You're not going to please them all, and it doesn't seem as though that we're setting ourselves up for the best going forward by listening to too many of them.
Reed.
Reed Spencer, NASCAR Wire Service. When you guys come back here in the fall for the elimination race, track's going to be flipped. Restart zone in turn 2, start-finish line in the middle of the dog leg there. What do you think the most pronounced effect that's going to have on the racing?
I think the restart zone for sure is going to be interesting, going to be different. I think that as far as the track being flipped, I don't think once you're running it's going to make much difference. But I think obviously with the restart and everything, there's more room, I feel like, when you get off into turn 3 right now. If it was turn 1 for restarts, but it feels like you kind of try to figure out how to get single filed by the time you get to turn 3, which is 1 right now. So it'll have some changing effects on kind of what's going to happen with restarts and such, and with the restart zone moving. If you're further back in the pack and trying to get a good restart or whatever, you're still going to be bending a corner almost, So I don't think it'll be that much different, but it's definitely going to be somewhat different.
Do you think you will see cars across start-finish panning out like Logano?
Well, you can't pass the start-finish line, right? So you only have a certain amount of space before you get down into turn 1. I'm sure you'll see some desperation moves and some bad decisions be made and some carnage ensue, but hopefully none of it's with us.
More questions? Jeff Gluck.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. I saw you took Brexton out in the dunes. What does Brexton think of going that fast?
He likes it. You know, so far so good. He's always kind of liked speed. His Lightning McQueen cars that he has are a little souped up, so you know they're not standard speed at all. He gets to go a little faster than his friends, so that's always pretty fun to watch and to see. But we were doing it this weekend. Last year he went out with me a little bit. We didn't go too far. We didn't go too hard because, you know, obviously being that small, you know, they're not fully developed yet. So you try to keep it light on the G loads and, you know, banging his neck around and stuff like that. So this time around we went for a longer dune ride, but still tried to, you know, keep it to his pace, I guess you'd say. And there were times that he picked up his hands and he was like driving. Like air driving, like the steering wheel. Like we were going up the dunes and he was turning, and we were going down and he was turning, and some other stuff. And then he fell asleep for a little while duning. So I mean, he's obviously pretty chill and gotten the hang of it pretty quick.
Greg.
Hey, Greg Moore, Arizona Republic. Good to meet you. Can you describe to me the strategy in the dog leg right now?
I mean, right now with the dog leg, when you take a restart right here, you have a corner to kind of get up to speed and get your thoughts and your things kind of going for when you get to the dog leg. But then once you get down around to the back straightaway, you know, everybody tends to fan out. It gets pretty wide over there, and guys get pretty aggressive on how much they want to cut it. With the no ride height rule in the Cup cars, we obviously slam the racetrack pretty hard, and side skirts bend, and things kind of happen a lot during the race. And you got to be conscious of that and kind of pick and choose when you want to use the dog leg and how hard you want to be aggressive on using the dog leg and beating up your race car. So all that goes into your mind as you're racing around through there. But you know, if it comes down to the end and a late restart, a 3 to go, a green white checkered, or whatever, then you got to utilize as much of a shorter distance as you can in order to try to make up spots. Mm-hmm.
Any more? All right. Thank you, Kyle.
You got it.
All right. We're joined by the driver of the number 34 K-Love Radio Ford from Glendale, Arizona, Michael McDowell. So, Michael, just how special is it to kind of race at home in front of all your friends and family?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's very cool, especially to have your family here and friends. And I've been coming to this racetrack since I was a kid, and watched, you know, Copper World Classic here, and Tony Stewart and Mike Bliss, and guys race sprint cars and midgets and Indy cars and stock cars. So it's got a lot of history for me, for sure.
All right, we're going to open it up to questions, and we'll lead with Wolfgang.
One question only. No. Okay.
My friend from Germany.
Yes, thank you very much for remembering.
Yes, sir.
Michael, you're now with a two-car team compared to last year's. Is it much easier now when you can share information with your co-driver?
Yeah, it's great, especially today because David's faster than me, so it's nice to go figure out why, to look at data, and just be able to look at setups, and you know, our cars are coming from the same shop, from the same plates, and so that we know that everything correlates. So we struggled a little bit in that first practice, so we'll be able to lean on David, and for me, just to be able to look at his data and look at what he does is definitely a big help.
Over to Lee.
Did you ever think when you were an instructor at Bondurant that you'd be in the big show one day?
Well, I don't want to lie to you. You know, when I was a kid, I had very high expectations, and I really did think I would make it. And then once I got here and realized how difficult it is and how humbling the sport is, I look back and I think about my younger self, how crazy I was. I mean, I was just out of my mind. So it's very, you know, it's something that I take very seriously, that I'm one of 40 on a race weekend. I know there's a lot of talented guys out there, probably more talented than I am, that would love to be in this spot. So it's not something I take for granted. And you know, I did a lot of hot laps here in some Cadillac CTSs with 4 people in the cars and doing all kinds of fun stuff. And, you know, working at Bondurant it's a race car driver's dream. I mean, it gives you an opportunity to hone your skills, to make a little bit of money, and a flexible schedule. And Bob was very influential in my career, very helpful. And so it's, you know, it's definitely something I look back at those times, you know, working at Bondurant were great memories.
Does the challenge of, you know, finally getting here and now starting to have
It does, especially because 3 or 4 years ago, 8 years ago, I thought I was done, right? And so to still be here is something that's amazing. But, the last 2 years for me to actually see performance gains. And, last year was my first year running full-time in 9 seasons in the Cup Series. And so to be able to put together a solid season and to come back and start off this year pretty well, it's very rewarding, especially for all those times that I came here and start and parked and only ran 30 laps and was just trying to stay in the sport and try to keep a job and provide for my family and to kind of go through those 4 or 5 years of just really struggling, trying to figure out why am I even here, what am I doing, to now have the experience to understand the cars, know the racetracks, and to race competitively is something that's very rewarding.
Chris,
9catchfence.com. Hey, last week you guys didn't have the finish that you were hoping for, but you guys showed a lot of potential with the speed that you had all throughout the weekend and even into the race. Is that encouraging for the bigger tracks moving forward with you in front row?
For sure. Last weekend we had a piece of debris come through the radiator and unfortunately took us out of the race. But running in the top 10 in practice, qualifying in the top 15. Racing in the top 20, being on a lead lap, those were all really good signs of our speed at the mile and a halves. And so felt really good about that. And even though we didn't get to finish, and when we finished 37th because the failure we had, we left there pretty excited about where we're at as a race team and where we could potentially be. So a lot of great things are happening right now at front row. To get both cars in the second round doesn't sound like a lot, but last year I think that between the 2 cars they were only able to do it 5 or 6 times. So we're going on our 3rd week in a row here where we could potentially move on to the second round. And last week we were close to moving on to the 3rd round. So it's just showing all the hard work that everybody's put in back at the shop, and to have a little bit of speed is always nice. And you just got to keep pushing, keep fighting.
Reed.
Reed Spencer, NASCAR Wire Service. To follow up on that, everybody has remarked on the performance gains at front row this year. How do you account for that? I know you're new to the team, but there's really been a noticeable difference in performance.
I don't know how to account for it because I wasn't there last year. So I really lean on David, and he has a great understanding of that. I think it's a combination of our partnership with Ford and Ford Performance, putting more resources into our team and allowing us to have more access to engineering support, and all those things are really helpful. And then the partnership and alliance with Roush Fenway's been growing over the years, and I think it took a few years just to work out how do we take in and process all this information. It's like drinking from a fire hose. You don't know what to do. I think now that we are in a situation where we understand the process and how it works and what we need to do and how we process the information seems to be pretty smooth. So all in all, I think it's just a slow progression. And I think that, a little bit in the off season is just bringing in some fire, of like, hey, let's do this. We're not okay where we're at, and how are we going to get better? And everybody pushing really hard in that direction. And then David and I pushing really hard and pushing each other. And Bob Jenkins is really leading that he doesn't want to run 30th every weekend. And so he's put the resources behind it to help improve it. And so far we've done that, and hopefully we can keep that momentum going.
We're going to go over to Sam.
Sam Brennan, ASU Blaze Radio. Obviously, you've grown up around this track, raced on it a ton of times, and now we're kind of seeing all the changes come into light. What is your opinion on all these changes, and do you think it's kind of bittersweet, or how are you reacting to it?
No, I think it's great. And the reason I do is that this is a great racetrack. It's always produced great racing. Even before the reconfiguration, it was always a great racetrack for the fans and for the drivers. But I also think about this place is always packed. We always have tons of fans, tons of campers, and there's some tracks that we go to that aren't the case anymore. And so when I heard that they were getting the facelift and they were getting the remodel and getting the funds to do it, I felt like it was well deserved. I think Brian and his team here have kept the stands full and the campgrounds full. in tough markets and tough economies throughout the last 10 years that I've been doing this. It's always been steady here, and I think they deserve it, and it's going to be great for the fans. I think that the interaction and just the access and the coolness of it being new and fresh, and there's a lot of great things happening. So that'll help keep fans in the stands, for another 10 years.
Mike Hembry.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. When you see a guy run like Harvick has the last couple of weeks, leading so many laps, is your first thought they found something nobody else has? Is that a driver's thinking?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious to see that Stewart Haas has found something. They found Kevin Harvick. I mean, he's just good. I mean, it's just the way it is. He's been good his whole career, and he's very, very good at those tracks where there's tire fall off and there's bumps, and he's got a rhythm and he's got a knack to knowing what he needs. And obviously they're on their game right now, and when guys get like that, they're tough to beat. And confidence and momentum inside the team and inside the driver, it's only going to get worse. So, somebody's going to have to knock the wind out of their sail here in the next 3 or 4 weeks, or they're going to go on a roll for a while.
Go over to Greg now.
Greg Moore, Arizona Republic.
Hey,
Good to meet you. So you talked about the facelift and the fan experience. How's that going to affect you as a driver when they move the start-finish line, and how that affects how you attack the dog leg, these sorts of things?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a change for sure. How it's all going to play out, I'm not really positive of that. When we first got to this reconfiguration and we all saw the dog leg and we saw all that asphalt down there, we were like, nobody will go down there, right? And then the first restart, there's 17 wide, so you just never know until you get here. As far as moving it, and I think that it's going to change the way that the starts are for sure. Turn 3 is very tricky, but more than anything is just you're going to be getting through the gears, and you're going to have cars still in the turn as we come to the green. So that's going to change, the back half of the field a little bit too. So, but drivers, teams, we just adapt. I mean, it's not a huge difference for us, a huge deal, but it's fun to mix things up a little bit too.
Any more questions for Michael?
Come on, Gluck. You got something, right? Airbnb.
Man over here.
So to expand on your thoughts of racing on your hometown track, what would it mean to you to have a strong finish here on Sunday?
Yeah, I just want to run good. I've always sucked here. I don't know why. Man, it's like it's your hometown race, and you're like, come on, get it together. But early in my career, I had some good runs here in the Xfinity cars, and I had a few good runs qualifying, and then for the last 5 years, I've just been really bad here. So I'm not sure the rhythm of what it takes. I've been studying Harvick films. Hopefully that'll help me. But, yeah, it's, some tracks just go really well. I go to Pocono, and it's like, wow, where did all that speed come from? And I come here, and it's been a struggle. So it's not the track's fault. It's not even my team's fault. This is a place that I just haven't had the best runs at. But I look at that as a challenge. I don't just go, I'm not good at Phoenix. I just go, okay, I got to study more data, study more film. I got to change things up. If you do what you've always done and you don't change anything, then you're going to get the same result. So just trying to get a fresh look at it, and obviously a teammate and a new team helps that.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. So you said you're studying film. Is this like...
Are you going to ask about data?
No, I was going to ask about the film itself. Like,
Yeah.
do you go on YouTube and watch this, or do you have access to in-car footage? Like, what?
I can't tell you all that information.
Okay.
No, I think that everybody can access the races and qualifying and everything from YouTube. And the teams and manufacturers are recording all that stuff too. So as far as the in-car stuff goes, it really just depends if you get lucky enough to find something online. Sometimes guys will actually, take video of it and put it on YouTube, like people watching it, and so you can study some things like that. If it's inside a manufacturer, then you might get access to it, depending on who it is and what team it is, and it's kind of changed throughout the years. It used to be you didn't get to see anything. and now NASCAR allows you to have more access to the videos to watch. So yeah.
One more with Bob in the back.
Bob Hawkers, ESPN. You talked about, having to start and park and everything, and made me realize that you got a lot of benefit from the ability to start and park, and that really there is no more ability to do that now. And yet now you're also able to take advantage of this charter system because I assume it funnels a little bit more money than it would have into your cars with this team than it would have in the past. So I'm curious, how do you balance? I was curious what you think about kind of the system the way it is now, and the fact that maybe it may have been more difficult for you to get here, but now that you're here, it may make things, or maybe give your team a little bit more potential.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that. The opportunity for me to start and park was great for my career as far as being able to stay in the sport and still get experience and spend time. So I agree with you. Had that not been in play, I'm not sure I would be here. But I also think about there's probably 4 or 5 cars that are in the race today that have a charter that are running full distance but are operating on similar budgets as we did to start and park. So the difference is we had to go all out to make a race. You remember when there was 45 cars or 50 cars trying to make a race, you didn't cut any corners. You had the best engine you had. You bought full allotment of tires for practice, 6 sets. You're in Q runs, the best radiators, the best everything you could have just to make the race. So we spent a lot of our money just to make the race then. Now, because you don't have to do that, I feel like 5 years ago, I'd just be in one of those cars doing that. So I think there are guys getting that same kind of experience. Ross Chastain last week, guys like that, where they're getting to run the full distance, where I wasn't able to do that. But I was able to qualify a car really fast because it had, all the cool parts on it. They only had to go 2 laps. So, yeah.
Does we have anything else? All right, Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.